So I'm Heba Elsharkawy. I'm course leader for architecture. I'm reader in architecture. I hold a PhD in environmental design, so this is really my passion. I'm research active, so I've been doing a lot of research on sustainable design, environmental design of buildings, and performance of buildings as well. And that's my real passion in research and in teaching. I've been at UEL for 5 years now, and I've also led the architectural design technology before taking over BSc architecture.
I'm Fulvio Wirz. I'm senior lecturer, and I'm also program leader for the MA in Architecture and Urbanism. My background is I've been working for 15 years as an associate at Zarid Architects, and I hold a PhD in digital design. So I always had a very strong interest on the correlation between, digital tools and architectural design. And that's actually what I love to do with the students. And I really believe that, this enables students to, improve their creativity and making them, better professional to, boost their future careers.
What I really enjoy about working at the University of East London is the diversity of the students. We have really ambitious ones who aspire to do really well in their careers, and it's really always a pleasure to support them, to see them develop, see them through the different phases, and get them into jobs as well. So that's really one of the really big things that I enjoy about UEL, as well as obviously, the community of staff, of students, the campus facilities. I mean, I think I'm really enjoying the whole kind of the physical and cultural aspects of the campus.
Yeah, personally, I think, even as a designer, I really like cross-contamination between multiple aspects of the design and different disciplines. And actually, what happens at UEL is that you have a lot of this contamination, not only because you're exposed to different departments, but also because students, they have very kind of rich diversity of cultures. And what I notice is that compared to teaching to other universities, this really comes, it's something that the student wants to put in their work. And this is also something which enriches us as tutors, because we start taking into account things which probably we wouldn't be taking into account if we were exposed only to a single culture. So the richness of the university is definitely, as Heba said, in diversity, but cultural diversity really enriches also the design.
I mean, it's a great point, Fulvio, you touched on. I mean, because we are based in the architecture and visual arts building, so it's not only architecture focused courses such as architecture, architectural technology, interior design, product design, and also MA, architecture and urbanism, MArch, the postgraduate studies in architecture. But also we have the other side, which is the visual arts. So graphic design, fine arts, fashion, all of these really exciting courses. And as Fulvio has mentioned, having to share this experience, because we share the same building, they have their own studios, we have our own, but we still share workshops, we share the open spaces, the gallery space, the atrium. So, and it's always there's always something happening there. Either it's something related to architecture as a show, or it's an arts show. And that really makes it more exciting and more of this cross-fertilization across the different courses. So that's really key, I think, to the overall learning experience that we have. So for me, my favorite module to teach is design. It's always the most exciting module where you start with a really small idea and it starts to develop and you see it through. So I think, really one of the most exciting modules is the design module, and overseeing the project development from concept to completion, I think is one of my really, the ones I'm passionate about.
Yeah, I do agree. Of course, being a designer, design is also, a module which, really takes most of our effort. And also is where we really build a strong relationship with the student, where we actually need to share our experiences, we have the opportunity to sketch and trying to filter their work. And what I find really fascinating is how, the possibility to try to purge their ideas from mistakes, but try to keep it, a kind of personal experience, as opposed to try to, force them through something which is, in a way, injected by our background. I mean, that's the key task that we have to try to do, and it's really fascinating how this kind of process is triggered. But nonetheless, I mean, as a program leader of the MA Architecture and Urbanism, I also really enjoy the final module, the mental wealth, where actually we have the opportunity to push the students to get engaged with our digital fabrication lab, and in which they are actually encouraged to make large physical models of their project, or assembly of the facade one-to-one. So I mean, the aspect of digital fabrication, it's also a very, very fascinating one, and another one which I love to get engaged with students.
I think, I mean, again, on the design module, I think it's also if by surveying the students and always speaking to them, it seems like design is always the one they most enjoy. And I think one of the main reasons is that they learn and practice a lot of diverse skills, starting from sketching manually to drawing on computer using softwares, to making models, physical models, making models. Even the models themselves, they could be done in various ways, either manually or using digital fabrication. And then producing final drawings and going through the whole process. I think and also even presenting. So they do a lot of presentations, and they learn how to curate their work in a portfolio, and the narrative that they're going to be, how they're going to be telling their stories. And I think it's a lot of things there, a lot of skills there, that makes it a bit more exciting, perhaps, than maybe, the other modules are obviously really important as well to support the whole learning journey. But I think that's probably the most exciting one. So I think being in London is a major advantage for students studying architecture-related courses. And the first reason would be that there's a lot that they learn, that they can see and learn from projects, even historical projects, but also modern projects. They can see a wide variety and diversity of history and modern architecture in London. Obviously, also the second one is about having London is like a crucible for architecture. It has the major architectural practices based in London, and that also assists in them being contributing to our courses, them being invited into our courses to either crits or reviews, or even for guest lectures. The other way around as well. So another key learning experience, I think, which is really important, and students really appreciate that as well, that's from their feedback, is students going out to architectural practices, visiting the premises, seeing how architects work, seeing the type of tools they use, the type of atmosphere, the models that they have, the materials that they use. All of these are really important they really inform students' education and learning, and they also create this bridge with the industry. So we were just discussing, actually, Fulvio and I, the idea of inviting crits, inviting externals in our next crit, so they can also, find students who can actually then come to their practices and work with them. So it helps with the employability of our students. So I think there are a lot of advantages of studying in London, and I'll hand over to Fulvio. I think he's got other things to say.
Yeah, I mean, definitely London culturally is a very key capital of architecture. So, besides the incredible amount of practices. I mean, there's also the aspect that the whole city it's a live construction site. So I mean, even if they just walk through the city, I mean, I'm from Italy, and quite often when I go back there, I see everything which is standstill. Everything is pretty much the same, apart from a couple of exceptions like Milan, for instance. But if you come here, if I have to think about London in 2005 when I moved here, and London now, I mean, there are some places which are totally different. If you think about King's Cross, what it was before and what is now, I mean, so they are constantly exposed to cutting edge projects, and they can also see and witness the way they get developed. And especially UEL students, they are literally studying in one of the most vibrant area of the city, where most of the expansion is going on. So I mean, it's an amazing scenery to have as a kind of studying environment, in my opinion. Apart from the fact that actually they have the opportunity then to get hired by some of the finest practices in the world.
Just to add a bit on this, I worked previously in Cardiff in Wales, and normally we would take our students to study trips to London. That would be our kind of annual study trips to London or beyond. But normally London was always one of our key destinations. So just to reiterate how significant it is in terms of architecture experience. I think one of the topics that students of architecture will probably need to embed within their learning, and we're doing that as well with our new academic framework, with new modules, deeply looking into design integration, environmental design integration into projects, by thinking about, first of all, how does your design, how does the student's design or proposal, how does it impact on the environment, in terms of materials, in terms of energy, in terms of carbon emissions, and all of these aspects, they are key, but maybe they haven't been embedded a lot, previously. So very recently, the RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, has issued the Way Forward, and this Way Forward is actually looking at key competencies for future architects, one of them being, designing for climate emergency, and considering this very carefully in their design decisions, in how their designs will impact or can impact the environment, and how to minimize this impact as low as possible. And, obviously to support the government's plans for, net zero carbon by 2050, all the new buildings will need to be net zero, and to achieve net zero targets by 2050. So education is supporting the policies, but also obviously the most important issue is the climate emergency, and that we all need to address across all sectors.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. There are a number of things that people are, students who are approaching a kind of architectural program might not consider. It's true, architecture is not only about residential, it's not only about, doing interiors. I mean, it's also about resolving much larger and complex projects like infrastructures. Myself, I found myself designing a metro station. My office is now really putting, my previous office is really putting a lot of resources into building up an expertise in airports. So transports, cultural buildings are all kind of, topics that a student of architecture might potentially face in the future. But the other thing that maybe sometimes is fun, but we don't think of, is that there's a quite interesting parallel opportunity that is developing for students of architecture, which has to do with gaming industry. It has to do with everything where actually architects can design virtual worlds, which are not necessarily going to be built. And apparently those jobs are really, really well paid. I mean, architects who are designing the the backgrounds for the movies, because now, I mean, with 3D and special effects, I mean, most of what we see in television, especially in sci-fi movies, is all built in 3D. And that's exactly the skills that architectural students are going to get. And also for video games. I mean, it's, I've been impressed by looking at the salaries that you can get by doing this. It's something that quite often our students don't take into account, but it's a really fascinating world. And that's why in our classes we are really stressing with the digital, knowledge, because it opens up also the possibility to a job which is more related to the virtual world rather than to the, real one.
Getting them into jobs. So we've got several of them. I mean, in the last few months, around 6 or 7 of them. Let's say the last year, 6 or 7 of them got into jobs via architectural practices who are involved with us in the teaching as well. And it really makes a huge success that those externals or those practitioners who have actually seen through again the progress of the students, and then they decide to offer them jobs at their practices. So it really is. I think this is when I really feel achieved something, because we've helped the students and assisted them and supported them to come from a level 3 or level 4 and secure some good jobs.
Yeah, I mean, even in my case, I mean, having some of my best students, getting hired and chosen together, or even preferred to students who are coming from, universities like UCL or the AA, of course, it's really something which I pride myself of, and I think we should really praise UEL, to have such an amazing, team of lecturers, which has nothing to envy to other, universities which are just at the moment more renowned. But I really hope we're going to get there, because we have all the ingredients to be a top university.
There is a problem that we get diverse students in terms of, let's say, gender first. We get almost 50% of students in at level 4, let's say. They progress we can comparatively okay, males and females, but then later on, as they progress throughout their career, the females start to go downhill, I think, and it becomes predominantly male driven at later or at higher levels within the careers. And obviously that's because of family and children and all of that. In terms of diversity, for BAME students, we are very diverse. I mean, I have to say we are very diverse in terms of BAME students, within these student cohorts. We had a slight attainment gap that we've been addressing, and I think we are nearly there. We're almost at 5% of BAME gap, so we are nearly we're nearly balancing it off. So I think we've been doing a great job in terms of supporting our diverse cohorts and making sure that they achieve the highest potential.
It is something that I've been discussing since the beginning. When I joined UEL, it was even part of my interview at the beginning, and I do realize that the building industry has an issue with diversity, and at the opposite, I mean, we feel that UEL diversity, as we said earlier, is a strength. So, I mean, all we can do as tutors is to try to make the most from the diversity, trying to work with the student to let them understand that the diversity, cultural or ethnic or the gender diversity, can become their key strength. And the only way to change the business is really becoming really committed, showing that you have the capabilities and to overcome what the trend of the business is now by offering quality, by offering, a very high level of instruction. And then you can achieve your goals no matter what, because there are many examples of people who manage to succeed. So only through excellence you can actually fight this situation in the business. And that's what we need to instate in our students and explain them. This could be a good point, actually. And this is something that I think makes the ethos of UEL very diverse from other universities. I mean, as I said, I've been working with the Bartlett. I've been working closely with people trained at the AA. And all these schools, especially when it comes to postgraduate programs, but even earlier on, they're really based on a kind of very speculative research, which doesn't necessarily connect to what the industry or where the industry is going. And at UL, we have this culture which is really deeply grounded into the making, the fabrication, and both, through our workshops and through analog tools and digital tools, we really try to realign what we are teaching to what can be built. And also in our most advanced programs, like the MA in Architecture and Urbanism, we try to realign what we are trying to teach and the research we are doing to what is possible to do in 5 years. So by the time the student is gonna be out there and market himself and try to get a job, his technologies, his knowledge will be instantly able to make an impact. Whereas, I mean, what I found compared to other, universities, that maybe they might produce very compelling and beautiful researches, but by trying to project the research too far away from now, you risk to disalign it from where the industry will actually go, because you are envisaging something which is a potential future, but is not necessarily the real future. So what we are trying to do at UEL is trying to align whatever we do to the real foreseeable future of architecture, and that's something very interesting to me.